let's go. All right. As always, start off with a little bit about us, Mad.Forensic.Scientist. Today we're going to be diving into an introduction to toxicology, Introduction to Toxicology Tuesdays. So focusing in on what is toxicology and why we care. So what to expect from Toxicology Tuesdays, we're going to be a weekly or every other week presentations on toxicology topics, recent journal articles, or other publications, and your input is going to guide what's next. So you guys give input on Twitter, post here on the Twitch feed, things of that nature, comments even on YouTube. Post them, and I will get back to you. I will try to tailor what you guys are interested in. So we're trying to focus in on toxicology topics that you are interested in. So to dig into that, we're going to talk about what is toxicology. It's the effects of chemicals on living organisms, often referred to as the study of poisons. Investigates poisons and other contaminants. Toxicologists research the properties of that poison, its effects, treatments, and potential solutions, as well as regulations. It's a little bit of history of toxicology. It's ancient science. Actually, it goes back pretty far. But more recently, I say, in the 1800s, Orfila, who's considered the father of forensic toxicology, established forensic toxicology by using his techniques to find evidence of arsenic in the body of a murder victim. So he applied toxicology. That was one of the first times it was applied to legal death investigation. Toxicology has many branches. So toxicology is a very diverse subject. It has aspects of forensics, so there's forensic toxicology, clinical toxicology, environmental toxicology, veterinary toxicology, and aquatic toxicology. Now there are various versions of and divisions inside these main sections, but I'm just going to focus in on giving these five focus. So digging into forensic toxicology, as stated earlier, it was established by Orfila. It's one of the most popular branches. When people think of toxicology, often they think of forensic toxicology. And I myself am a board certified forensic toxicologist. Focuses on the analysis of biological samples to identify and quantify the presence of toxins and drugs in these biological samples. So biological sample can determine the presence of illegal drugs in a person's system. So if a person has done drugs, that's going to be in their biological specimens, either their blood, urine, saliva, etc. And in the case of death, it could be found in tissues, liver tissue. I mean, it's found in that when you're living too, but we don't test tissue in living people. Forensic toxicologists can provide key information about substances in a person's body even after death. So even after death, we can extract drugs from tissues. Like I said, liver tissue specifically is it often used, brain tissue, muscle tissue, hair. And in terms of advanced decomposition, you can test from blood or bones. Whenever the soft tissues are gone, and even use insects. You can even have entomotoxicology. And findings and research are key information in many criminal investigations. So finding these drugs, finding these toxins inside is often important for these criminal investigations. That's the idea of forensics, means it's in the court of law. So this is often a key aspect of law enforcement. Then there's clinical toxicology. It's a direct application to research of an individual patient typically. Clinical toxicologists may assess in patients to diagnose them, to assess toxin severity, and provide long-term prognosis or treatment. So often this is your hospital settings or research settings, clinical research, things of that nature. And this is often to prevent or treat diseases caused by chemicals or toxins. Even in some aspects, the treatment is a toxin. So you have to monitor how much you're dosing a patient, especially whenever there's, brain trauma, and they have to really reduce pressure on the brain. They'll administer pentobarbital. Pentobarbital is very toxic in high concentrations, but it puts you, basically when they say they induce a coma, they're giving pentobarbital. What that is that but at a high concentration, too much of the pentobarbital, it no longer becomes a treatment, and it's actually a death sentence. Pentobarbital is actually often used in lethal injections, so you have to monitor at a clinical setting the concentration of the drug that you're applying to your patients. It often is more of a direct approach to a specific individual, like I said, when they're dosing a patient. Environmental toxicology. This is often focused on how chemicals, such as air pollution, affect the environment and human health. It's interested in movements of chemicals throughout the environment. Understanding where these chemicals and toxins go, how they end up there, and how they make it into our bodies. For example, they may study how air pollution in certain areas may have long-term effects on the population. I actually was just part of a study recently for the EPA here at Florida International University, where I was doing a study similar to this. So environmental toxicology, we evaluate how toxins, whether that be PFAS or heavy metals or phthalates, plastics, things of that nature, microplastics, anything that's a pollution, that's a pollutant, how that exists throughout the environment. So how it affects our ecosystems, how it affects our food chains, and how it ends up into our body, whether that's through dust, whether it's through the food we eat, the water we drink. All this are all aspects of environmental toxicology. It's a very, very important aspect of toxicology, especially as our population increases and we have more and more pollution. It's important to monitor these kind of toxicology aspects. Then there's veterinary toxicology. It's the research of the existence of toxins and poisons in wildlife, livestock, and pets. A veterinary toxicologist can try to identify toxins present in the animal that originated from a poisonous plant or contaminated water supply. This is just some specific examples. Generally, they research large number of animals in an attempt to trace the source of these toxins. Attempt to understand their origins and how to prevent further exposure. So oftentimes, pesticides and things like that can be toxic to wildlife, and it's important to understand how these compounds persist in the environment and how they're affecting our wildlife. So in instance, they're DEET. I don't know if you guys know that, DEET. It was in the environment. It's used to kill. It's an insecticide, so it's used to kill insects. In the 70s, we were using that on everything, and it got into the food supply, and it was actually causing falcon. I believe it was falcon eggs to become too weak, and so the shells would break just from the parents sitting on them. So they actually determined that was a big factor in the decrease of these birds. These predatory birds were this DET toxin. So we had to remove that from our persistence. We stopped using as high concentration of DEET. We stopped spraying crops with as much DEET as we were, and the population of these predatory birds were able to regain. So this is just an example. Of course, if something happens to your pet, if they eat some poisonous plant, which Geisha's had that happen to her, where she ate a plant and had a seizure. So it can be important to identify these, and even heavy metals. Just recently there was a recall of pet food where there was too much zinc, I believe it was. It was causing vomiting and diarrhea from pets. So it was zinc or magnesium. I'm not 100% sure, but that just recently they had a recall of pet food, and so that could cause a high concentration in the pet's blood. And you test that using by a veterinary toxicologist would test that. Aquatic toxicology. So this is how aquatic toxicologists will analyze the adverse effects of contaminants and pollutions from chemicals on marine organisms and environments. They assess the condition of aquatic ecosystems and monitor those conditions over time. Toxicology is in the branch of study the effects of pollutants on many scales, each responding to contaminants in different ways. So here, specifically in Miami, our waterways, we monitor them very specifically. The bays, we want to make sure that there's not algae blooms or PFAS high concentrations, because this does infect the entire aquatic system. So once compounds are in this water, they're incorporated into the animals and into the rest of the food chain, and eventually gets to us. Or if we damage our ecosystem, our food chains too bad, it can affect our food supply. So that's just a brief overview of the types of toxicology. As you can see, they're all kind of intertwined. There's many different aspects of toxicology. So there's a wide plethora of things that I can talk about, and kind of information that if you guys are interested in it, then I can talk about it. So if you guys want to hear more environmental toxicology, you want to hear more aquatic toxicology, veterinary toxicology, forensic toxicology, you want to hear more about death investigations, you want to hear more about DUI investigations, opioid epidemic, you want to hear more about how drugs are impacting our healthcare systems. Anything like that, I can present on it and I can find some information on it. Toxicology is all intertwined. I'm a board certified toxicologist. I am an expert in the field, and I can find some information to present to you guys. So your input will guide what our lecture series will focus on. I'm here. I want to give you guys all the information that you want to know, anything like that. I will be choosing some of the first presentations as we get to know each other, as you guys get some contribution in, as you kind of tell me what you want to see and what you want to hear about, and I will find them and present on them. But until then, I'm going to focus in on what my strong suits are. So I'm going to focus in mostly on forensic toxicology and a little bit of environmental toxicology, because I do think that's very important. I think the amount of pollution that we have in our environment right now is alarming. I think that I've been studying this stuff, and there's a lot of literature out there. Um, there's a lot of scientific communities. We have toxicology. We have It's really broad. We have clinical toxicologist communities. We have forensic toxicologist communities, and we have environmental toxicologists. Big communities of them. So we have what we call just overall toxicology. It's SOT, the Society of Toxicologists. We have a forensic toxicology community, the Society of Forensic Toxicologists. We have environmental. We have the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, Analytical Chemistry, CTAC, and even international. We have TAFT, and the CTAC has an international branch as well. So environmental toxicology and forensic toxicology probably lead the pack, but clinical toxicology is a big thing too. Every hospital has some kind of clinical toxicology aspect to them, because it's patient care. It's an important thing. Toxicology, very very broad. If you have an interest, if you something about toxicology piques your interest and you want to see it, let me know and I'll present on it. Post it on Twitter, on the Discord. Anything that you want to hear about, any topic you want to throw out, I'll find a paper on it, I'll present on it, or I'll just do some research and see what's out there. Maybe I'll be presenting someone's dissertation. Maybe I'll find some information about it, or we can even discuss like what specifically you want. I want to have Q&A sessions as well. I know that we're just kind of getting into this and just an overview of what toxicology is currently. But I'm hoping that as you guys get a taste of the toxicology, that you guys will be hungry for more, and you'll come with some input, and you'll give me some ideas, because I want to tailor this lecture series to you guys. This is for you. I love to talk about toxicology. Toxicology is a passion of mine, but I want to hear from you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to click that subscribe button and follow the link to the next video. Tune in next Tuesday for more.